Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, guys. I'm super pleased to be here. In case you haven't figured out, this is a way for Indian students to get more Indians representing us here. So that's why I'm here. But apart from that, what the idea today is that I spend all my time thinking about AI, what's going to happen in the future, what are the right ways people should be looking at it today, right? There is so much hype on one end, and there is so much doomsday scenario on the other. We're practically fluctuating between these two depending on what our neuroticism counts and scores are. So I want to bring in a much more rational discussion on the floor and make it contextual to like how does it apply to business, what are the ways you guys can start leveraging AI today and maybe be prepared for all the things you can expect to change tomorrow. We all know that it's going to be super uncertain. Nobody's going to promise you certainty, neither me. If anyone promises certainty of the utopia or the doomsday, that doesn't make sense. It's going to be somewhere in the middle. We don't know how much in the middle would it be, right? So I talk about these ideas a lot. Just to give you a little bit of background about myself, these are the things. This is probably not even updated, yeah, but we've got 250,000 people across all our channels. We make a lot of content. That's why I was sitting here trying to fix the audio and the video, because that's what I spend a lot of my time in the studio. And I've made a computer vision product back in 2017 and 2018. We raised a bunch of funds for it, and we had one of the world's largest food producers sign up for an enterprise solution that we had built for checking the quality of agricultural produce. With just a photograph, we could process it and give you a very standardized report, which had a massive impact on the quality control industry. So that's like when I built products with it. And then there is recently what I've been doing is doing a lot of GenAI educational stuff, whether that be through social media, through a lot of these sessions and seminars like these, which are very interactive. So I won't probably kind of bore you guys with a lot of theory, but I do have a lot of theory today. Let me warn you also on that. We're going to talk about a lot of mental models, a lot of frameworks that you can use to make sense of the AI world, especially in the context of how it impacts business. That's what's going to be our focus. I don't want to cover the absolute basics of either business or strategy or tech. I'm going to assume from here that we are all at a certain level of exposure to these broad ideas, right? That's why I might skip a few of the basics, but at any point of time, if you feel like I should, please feel free, and I'll kind of double click on any of the ideas that you think should be explored more. So with that said, these are the things that we're going to talk about today. 5 of these sections. So we'll spend roughly 15 to 20 minutes on each of these sections, right? And feel free to kind of intervene in the middle. It's not a very questions at the end thing. If something is going to take a long time, probably we'll push it to the end. But that's about it. We'll spend some time making sense of GenAI from a very practical POV. We'll use some frameworks and paradigms here. Then we'll talk about a broad impact on which industries are going to be in what way transformed. We make it specific to exactly what use cases and possibly what tools are worth exploring. We don't have the time to go and kind of learn a tool today. That's not the objective for sure. And if any of you feel that 1 or 2 or 3 of these things, use cases, tools make sense for you, I'm happy to organize something online once I'm back home and we can kind of pursue on that. Then we'll make it more specific of if you were to consult a CEO of a company, let's say hypothetically, what are the steps, what is the approach you're going to take, and how can AI help you with it, right? That's the kind of breakdown we'll do and make it much more tangible. Probably it'll help you with a lot of your case studies, if I'm not wrong. And if we have the time, we're going to actually run through a case study that I've heard DBS has brought in. How many of you guys are participating in it? So, okay, we've got about half of the strength here participating in this $10,000 reward money. That's what I got to know. So we might, at the end of it, absolute end of it, because this might stretch. So I would prefer to take it up at the end, and we'll run through a real life, like real time. I'll be the ChatGPT representative for a while, and we'll all together solve that case. Can we do something about it, right? and do it in a better way than what we usually do. So I think that will make it much more hands-on than a lot of other things that we're going to cover, right? And finally, I think the fourth and fifth, the fourth one is pretty obvious. We're going to talk about it's a very quick thing of why I genuinely believe having an MBA now makes more sense than before. Right? I'm sure it has always helped us with better career opportunities. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about when the future strikes, and it's striking slowly right now. It's going to be striking, honestly, when the change is disproportionate, and every year you're going to see so much drama happening in the business world. So many roles will evolve. The industries will practically not be recognizable in many ways in terms of how they internally work. Right? If you're going to produce oil, it's going to be oil. But the way you're making your drilling machines might change. The way you're selling it, who you're selling it to, those things might actually change a lot. So that's where having strong fundamentals of business, of strategy, of having a sense of tech and innovation, all of these, they coincide. And in what way can AI, and in fact, AI is the one that's going to accelerate every aspect of it, right? We've had so many technology innovations so far. This is the one that is pervasive and it's going to affect every single thing that we're working on. We can't predict which one is going to be more impacted than the others. That's very hard to try and do that. So we're not going to make any very broad claims of, for sure, this is the biggest deal. Cool. So that's like the context setting of the session. These are the things we're going to talk about. I would love to kind of get a sense of, I could speak with 3 or 4 people before this, but I would love to have a sense of, what's this room doing? Oh, we've got the crates. You don't have to secretly pass it. This is all in the open. In fact, pass me one. Okay, so I got to know that beer is completely, for those of you who don't have an idea what we're talking about, I got to know that beer is completely cool on the campus. So, and for the speakers as well as the students. So I said, why not? Like, I wasn't even in the mood for drinking it. But I think we have a reason now, because why not? Who else feels compelled by why not? Because why the not, right? So this is one of those activities. Wonderful. Thank you so much. I actually got a tiger yesterday evening, which I couldn't drink. Should we? Yeah, by the time we're passing the beers and stuff, I would love to, probably get a little bit of sense. I've spoken with Puneet and Parthan. We've spoken, yes. But could you guys help me understand what are you, specializing in? What are the kinds of subjects that we're talking about? I know innovation and strategy is one. What else are, what are the backgrounds and what are the things you guys are studying? Finance, okay. What else? Marketing, I see.
There's also sustainability and strategy.
Sustainability and strategy.
Not together, but two tracks.
Got it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's separate from strategy and innovation. Got it. So you've got a bunch of electives happening, which are more like you can absolutely choose what you want, right? Got it. And I know that a lot of you are very experienced already. So anyone fresh out of college here, or everyone's experienced here? Oh, everyone's experienced here, right? So that's what I was told. So and how many from tech backgrounds? Who used to code before? Okay, we've got a few. And who's from marketing here? Marketing, okay. Strategy and ops. You're from strategy background? Okay, perfect. Got it. And what else am I missing here? What other common things?
Business owners.
Oh, there are, okay. I didn't know. Do you run a business? You're running a business right now? Okay, very cool. So do you choose your business for the case study by default if you have a choice?
No, I can't do that.
You can't do that?
But I think it's a long drawn process for that. Not tried it yet.
Got it. Okay, awesome. Okay, so let's start with this question that you see on the screen. I want to get a sense of how optimistic or pessimistic do we feel about this right now? Very, very intuitively at an emotional level, do you feel super excited by it, or do you feel genuinely cautious and worried about it? I want to know that.
I'm excited.
Who's excited? Okay. Some people are worried, I'm sure. It has to be always. You're worried? You are? You're worried? Got it. What's your worry precisely about? For you personally, not in general.
I think that some militaries will they just gave the control to AI and some bug will just
Absolutely. Yeah, I can. It's imaginable now, by the way. Like what's imaginable may not become real. We can't predict that, but it's a fair thing to imagine right now. I think everything is valid when you imagine. What's yours?
If AGI is realized, then it's done, right? Like you don't need
Done. What is done? What precisely is done?
you don't need people anymore, right? For any like intellectual endeavor, if you have AGI, realize AGI that works the way it's supposed to, it can think better than like humans can, and it like because it'll arrive at context earlier. So technically, all
Got it.
jobs will be
Got it. Fair enough. Fair enough. So I think usually the trend is either complete Terminator scenario of some form, right? It doesn't have to be an army of robots. I think humans are smart enough to kill each other before the robots take over, right? We're capable of that. We can, in fact, in case you didn't know, we have as much nuclear warheads on the planet right now, which can practically destroy the Earth. How many times over? 30 times over. Yes. So 30 times over, we can actually destroy ourselves right now. So it's actually a miracle, given all the geopolitical, chaos that's happening. We haven't yet used it since the last time it happened, right? So I'm mentioning this because sometimes what scares us protects us much more. There is a reason why a lot of wars do not escalate. You might be seeing a lot of wars here, but I'll use this analogy later again in context of AI. That when there's a major threat that I can kill you, you can kill me, we both don't kill each other. So nuclear warfare has actually brought in way more peace than we thought it would bring in destruction. That's a very interesting, unexpected outcome of it. And a lot of that will be applicable in understanding the overall geopolitical and military impact of AI. Because when I also have it, then we are very peaceful, we are bros. Right? So that's a usual argument against it, but there is always chaos. You can't predict this. Okay. And then finally, the last question before we begin properly is, I want to know what is the most common use individually you guys are using it for? And then I'll start off so that I can make it more contextual. Are we using it for research, I assume? What else are we using it for? Apart from research?
content creation.
Content creation, okay, fair enough. Summarization, absolutely.
Coding.
You're using it already? You program right now? During college?
Not now, but in my previous job.
Okay, got it. Wonderful. What else are we using it for?
Image generation.
When you use it for image generation, but for what? Generate and do what with it? For marketing, for posters, what?
Maybe designing the logo, like for example,
Got it.
marketing class we had to come up.
Understood. You were saying image as well?
Yeah, so I basically come from media background. So we
I see.
use them for brands campaign creation,
Got it.
which we get used for their
Understood. Okay. So I think these are the most common use cases, and we will talk about some use cases beyond these as well, so that whenever you decide to kind of out of NTU, when you choose to opt for one of the career paths, whatever is your plan, you'll have a broader exposure through this particular discussion on which industries will see what kinds of interventions, right? So given that, okay. Now that you've generated this, I like to do this small exercise of which one do you think is AI and which one is real. I know it's a little pixelated now, it's on big screens, it goes out. But quickly, left. Who's for left? Which one is AI? Or which one is real? Okay, which one is real? Left or right? I've got some most left and both, right? Okay. These ones. Which one is real? Which one is AI? You're saying both real? Right one is real? Right. The observation of light. Anything else? Okay. Do you realize the exercise is if you have to think, then AI is winning at this point. It's not about whether you get it right or wrong. You get the point, right? You're confused. Okay, I have to pay attention and squint your eyes. Until then, you're not sure. So, and this one is easy. This one is the easiest. Hey. The right one is pretty popular now. She's making $100,000 a month. Her name is Aitana or Aitana, I don't know what's pronounced, but it's a fake Spanish model, and she's making $100,000 a month. She's rich. Yeah. Yeah, she's a virtual influencer. She doesn't exist. It's like when you fill your petrol, the money goes to Ambani, kind of that. But no, it's in the sense that there is some guy and running it, and you know, which it's probably a guy. Okay, we can all imagine that, right? So, okay, this was just to get us up to speed on that. We're talking about like AI is getting serious. Last year, same time, we were all hypothesizing a lot because ChatGPT 4 wasn't out. It was 3.5. It was still a little stupid. Then the image generation was cool but not awesome. So now we're at that stage where it's proven that image generation is scary good. The LLMs are getting scary smart. And that's why this conversation becomes even more important. So we can now be bolder when we try to imagine the future. So these are the most popular ones. I just made a quick note in case you haven't heard a few of those recent ones. But Flux is my new recent favorite for those of you who are interested in image generation. I've created an AI clone of myself. And I just prompt out whatever, whatever I want to wear, whatever pose I want. I'm like, pose like a Zara model. I'm all there, right? In reality, I can't pose for shit. So you've got the video generation ones. These are the new cool ones. These two, Kling, Minimax, and then Runway. Sora is still not out yet. Whoever's interested, please check these out. We're going to discuss a lot of tools and how to, kind of generate a video and prompt for it. And yeah, Flux is my favorite. And then Gemini is pretty useless in case you haven't tried it yet. Google is falling behind so far, but it probably jump back. So ChatGPT 4.0 and now the new one is O1. Did you hear about the O1? Yeah. Right? That thing is crazy good. Although it is fundamentally ChatGPT 4.0, which is wrapped in a certain way where it's forced to go through certain steps, so it becomes smarter. So it's ChatGPT 4.0 but smarter, right?
It's only out for text, right?
Sorry?
It's only out for text, right? Right now.
It's only for text, yes. It doesn't generate images. For that, you have to use DALL-E 3.
So it doesn't even take image inputs.
I don't know about O1, but ChatGPT 4.0 takes image inputs.
Not one, right? The one that
No, I don't know the new one, if it takes image ones or not. I haven't tested it yet. I've been in Singapore by the time it came, so got it. And this is for me to give you a sense of the pace of progress. That's very important because we like to think in linear terms that things go this way, right? That's a default imagination, but exponentials are very hard for us to imagine, and this is a good sense of that. 2022 Feb, I think one of these, this is 23 as you can guess, this one is 23, so ignore that. But you can see this is the same prompt applied across time, and within about a year and a half maybe, we're at ultra hyper realistic images where you can't distinguish them, right? 1.5 years from the point of view of creating terrible images like these, right? So this is the pace of progress. Another one, same here, look at this is even worse. See the drastic difference here. Version 1, you can't even say if that's a living being or what. It's a blob. And then you have a girl with precise freckles and it's ultra realistic, right? Portrait photography. So this phenomenon, because it's visual, I use this example, but it's happening for text, it's happening for video, it's happening for audio and every other way you can imagine, right? So this is the speed we're talking about, and by the end of next year, a lot of us will find it very odd that there was a time we didn't have it, right? By the end of next year, it'll be like, right now ChatGPT is an afterthought, like, okay, let me quickly do it as a Google search kind of a thing. Let me research something quickly, right? Which is probably not the best use of it, but, and everyone's seen the Sora videos. Should I skip this? This is a 1-minute video, maybe I'll play a few. It's a 10-minute video, but we'll skip some. It doesn't have any audio, but yeah. So I want you to pay attention to the prompts, right? This is what OpenAI is claiming, although it's not out in the public yet. Some artists have gotten access to it and they've made pretty solid stuff, right? This is unbelievable, to the point that there is a kind of a conspiracy theory floating around that this is all fake. Yeah, it's a real fake. Yeah, real fake is a thing now, right? So look at the details. I mean, till this date, I've been showing this for the last 6 months, for probably 4 months. And I'm like, I still can't believe it that they're not lying to us, right? This is how good it is. This is my favorite one actually. I'll tell you why. So look at this edge. This guy will jump across the edge. So which means it has this concept of physical boundaries, which it's able to simulate without ever capturing 3D environments, right? So a lot of this is trained on the Nat Geo and Discovery kind of data. That's why this will be very high definition, high quality when you make scenic videos. This is unbelievable. And this one, I think they're definitely lying. Look at the camera motion, right? So yeah, that's about it. And you see the possibilities with this. Yeah, please.
So it seems like I think, I won't put it this way, but this is what I'm thinking. Like, these are the best ones possible, but they were.
Of course, these are the best ones. These are curated.
People would have 6 fingers, or 2 dogs would merge into one, or.
That's old story now. The fingers problem is gone. That's old story. Yeah, it's done. Nobody's having that problem, the prominent ones. But I think the point I'm trying to make is, we have to acknowledge at this point very clearly that this is really powerful. I think we can all agree on that, not that we don't believe that. But then the immediate question becomes, okay, what am I going to do about it, right? And that's what the rest of this interaction is going to be about. Given that it's super powerful, what's my take on it? What can I do to leverage it in my career, at least, in my business, in my job, whatever we are planning to do? Okay, so with this, let me give you an interesting way to conceptualize AI so that you can think for yourself. I'm going to give you a lot of ideas and some of these frameworks so that we can all think independently whenever we are thrown a fresh new problem statement. So I don't want to cover like the hacky stuff for sure. Number one, I think if people don't know here yet, AI is a roughly 70-year-old concept, right? Mathematicians knew this 75-ish years ago. They knew that machines can learn. But back then, compute was so weak, your GPUs were not invented. Even CPUs were a far-fetched idea, proper CPUs. So all they knew was it's so hard to, it's like the amount of energy and compute it's going to take, they couldn't fathom the scale. So they said this is never going to happen, or maybe sometime in the future. But that was enough, that mathematical concept was enough to fuel a series of sci-fi movies, which started making us believe this is indeed one day possible, right? So it started back then, and the most remarkable thing that people know is Turing test. Now, why this is special is because back then it was thought that if the Turing test can be passed, machines have taken over. Now, this is 1 year ago or 9 months ago, practically every large model that we had, like ChatGPTs and Llamas and Geminis of the world, everyone can cross Turing test. So this test has been breached by everyone, which means this test wasn't the best test, number one, right? But also, what we thought as a landmark feels like a childish game now. That's how ridiculous the difference is. And then we've had a series of terrible attempts at trying to recreate intelligence. All of them were, more like research enthusiasts trying to figure the next thing out, and they were all failing. Trust me, they were all failing. None of this is remarkable until Siri happened, which is, I think we can all agree, is not as impressive. Right? Nobody was threatened by it. And then this Deep Blue was one big deal. 97, they were able to beat the world chess champion. Can you imagine, it must have made waves to beat the extremely high intelligence sports. If you're doing that, people are taking you seriously. So that's when, again, for the second phase of AI, it picked up, and there was an AI winter in the middle of it. About 30 years, nobody made any progress. They thought this was a dead end. We're never going to have this much compute. And this is just irrational for us to put in investments in it. And then this chess player thing happened, right? So we've had a very long history of AI, and we usually think of AI in these terms, right? Am I right? We think of it something like a machine, something like an algorithm. It's probably a software. Our conceptualization is that. Can someone else imagine something else of what you think AI is? These could be ingredients in it, by the way. Nobody's saying that it is not relevant. But how would you conceptualize AI if you were to define it?
Solution.
Sorry?
Solution.
Solution.
For some problem like
Okay, a solution for a problem, fair enough. What else? Okay, experience. What else? How would you imagine it?
It's the creation of the human brain.
Creation of the human brain, interesting. Recreation, yeah.
Lots of if-else statements.
Yeah. Fair enough. No, by the way, that is actually considered AI, technically. But right now, of course, we are today talking about AI in a different context. But if we go by the theory, if else is intelligence. Anything else? How would you define it?
Indexing to lots of data.
Indexing
To lots of data.
to lots of data. Interesting.
Replication.
I think for me, it's the ability to learn.
There you go.
To improve itself.
Absolutely. I think this is the fundamental thing. That is the nature of intelligence. Like the idea that we can learn and adapt and do something better or different than before and not be on a repeat mode constantly. That's intelligence.
So would every machine learning algorithm also be an AI?
Yes, I'll show you that. But I'll just cover that part. Because these are machine learning, AI, deep learning, all of these terms are thrown around. So I'll make sense of these important terms because I know not everyone's from tech background. So I'm going to cover those important terms and what they mean without making it technical. I'm going to intentionally keep it a little low tech because I don't think it'll help you even if you were to know precisely in a nerd way what it means. What helps is how do you conceptualize it and how do you use it. So this is the definition of AI. Any intelligence for that matter is this. Can you learn? Can you make decisions basis that learning? And can you perform actions outside your own being? That is typically what intelligence is. And if you put that in a machine, if you figure out a way to create that in a machine, that becomes AI. That's about it. But that's what humans do, right? So now for the first time, we've got machines which do not act like a calculator only, right? In fact, there was a time when the calculators, when first they came, people thought it's the end of all accounting. A plain calculator. I think this is why I'm referring these examples is to say that, could we be also making the same mistake of imagining the worst immediately, right? Oh, by the way, I did not open my beer. Nobody's reminding me as well. But because I'm a little hungry, so if I drink this, I'll get tipsy by the end of it, so I'll avoid it. This is what you were asking for. So AI is the most generic term in the world of technology for anything that acts like it's intelligent. Even if it pretends, even if it seems like it's intelligent, it's considered AI. So if thens, the nested loops, that's what it's called. If you define all those conditions that if A happens, then do X. If B happens, then do Y. Even this is some form of intelligence. Some very low level form of intelligence. But when you do it at a very sophisticated scale where you've got hundreds of or thousands of lines of code doing precisely ifs and thens, it really feels smart. That's why AI is anything that seems intelligent. But now we're getting into closer to the idea of really intelligent. So machine learning is what became like all the buzzword. It was the popular word for the data science world a lot, right? Whether that data is text, it's numbers, right? If you've got a customer support center which is trying to automate conversations for the classic FAQs that you get, that was called NLP, natural language processing, and that was one form of machine learning. But if you did it with images, you could detect cancers and tumors from your MRI and CT scans. So that already existed, right? We've had that for the last 7 to 10 years in a reasonably advanced way. So AI is not new. Generative AI is new. That's what we're going to, kind of double click into. And then finally, there is something called deep learning, which is actually the simulation of human brains, right? The way your human brain is designed, where you've got a lot of these nodes which are in the form of neurons connected to other neurons and hundreds of connections. When they work together, somehow they produce intelligence. Somehow. We're not going to get into that theory, but the idea is how close can we mimic the human brain? And all the people who are making this, the more they get into deep learning, the more they're amazed by human brains, okay? What human brains can do with 20 to 30 watts of power equivalent, AI needs a few gigawatts, which is 10 to the power 6, 10 to the power 9 efficiency difference. That's what we're talking about. So we get even more amazed by our own biology when we go deeper into when we make our tech better. There are a lot of these words that I'm not going to throw at you, clustering and segmentation and whatnot. Not right now, at least. But this was the word that you had used earlier, AGI, right, Parthan? So there are three kinds of AI based on their capabilities. And it's very important for us to know why, because narrow AI is what exists today, which is defined for a specific task. ChatGPT is somewhere in the middle because it's not anymore, it's not just a task. It doesn't only just help you write better. It doesn't only just, kind of go and browse the links for you. It can practically be your thinking partner, right? And that makes it unique. AGI is technically defined now, like the definitions have taken a bit of update because what we earlier considered AGI has been surpassed already. So now the AGI which matters to us from business context is any form of AI which can do a large majority of human productive tasks in the employment context. What do you get paid for today? If 80%, 70%, something of that order can be now done by AI and you become redundant in that context, then it's called AGI. That's all it is. But we don't know when that will hit. It's a massive goal to have, and there are certain physical constraints by literally physics that getting AGI is going to be tough. So I know that a lot of us believe, and some people peddle this idea that AGI is round the corner. I think we'll have very smart ChatGPT further and further, no questions about it. But to claim AGI is a little bit of an arrogance at this moment, okay? Especially because, and I'll tell you why physics is a constraint here. When as a human you interact with the world, you have so many senses which are used for capturing data, assimilating all of them and producing something which is more than LLM intelligence, right? Imagine you were if a human child was frozen and could not move around, could not see anything new and just be spoken to all the time. Do you think that child would go on become successful in every field, any field for that matter, right? It's because they've never been exposed to so many different kinds of data points. So they cannot build that kind of intelligence which is necessary to navigate in the real world. And we still don't know how to build these senses, even the sense of smell, by the way. It's got its own significance in making a lot of intelligent, double quote, intelligent decisions, okay? So that is why AGI is harder than it seems. We'll get closer to it on the spectrum, yes. And then finally is ASI, if it happens, we're okay, we're all done. Like either it's all utopia or we won't be there to exist anymore, to watch it around. So one of these, I would not like to predict it.
What's the full form?
Sorry, artificial super intelligence. This is when it can tweak itself, its own code so well and create its own resources for compute itself. It doesn't have any energy constraints. I'm not now going really infrastructurally here, right? Because if today you think, oh, if it takes over, I can press this turn off button, right? I can turn off the button. That's the kind of imagination we have. Unfortunately, that is like, can you turn off the internet like that? You can't. So how will you deal with an AI which is already kind of propagated through trillions of computing devices? You're not going to be able to stop it. That's not happening. There's no switch off button. The only switch off button does exist, which is at the GPU and energy clusters, which is these are these huge, like practically factories which are either generating energy or generating compute, right? Are they doing trillions of calculations every microsecond? I don't even know what comes after trillion. Is it zillion? I don't even know. So that's what the scale we're talking about. So we can still stop it, but that's not how things work, like really, right? There will be some corporate behind it saying it'll cause me $1 trillion of loss if you turn it off. Sorry, I can't help it. Yes, quadrillion. Okay. Because I'm used to calling it gazillion and bazillion as if it means something. Okay, so does it make sense? We've got, what are the different kinds of AI and why, these are important so that you can frame your own ideas around it independently. That's why I'm talking about these. And finally, this is what, these are the three big capabilities of AI. Big, when I say, there might be other small ones here and there. But one is prediction, classification, generation. We're going to, from this point onwards, we're going to go into generation completely. We're not going to talk about the prediction and classification ones. But to sum it up, if you've got a stock market algorithm, it's trying to predict where it's going to go up or down and make a decision on whether to buy or sell. Make sense? That is prediction. Basis a lot of data points coming in from n number of places. You've got prediction happening of different data. That's one. Then second kind of thing is classification, which is how your in some way your Netflix recommendation or YouTube recommendation engine works. What it does, it classifies any object. Even a dog versus cat detection on a camera is classification, where it knows which bucket to put this entity into, right? But also your algorithm, why? Because if I am watching, let's say, Jordan Peterson a lot, and you're watching Jordan Peterson a lot, then the algorithm says we seem to be similar in our preferences. Let me show you, let's say I watch World of Warcraft, but he doesn't. So he might once in a while get a World of Warcraft recommendation. Of course, this is happening on much bigger data. It says these guys seem similar in their consumption behavior. So let's classify and bucket them as one group and then target them with better quality videos. So that's your classification. Finally, generation, which is this. So this is the only kind of GenAI. You could earlier, if you saw a picture of dog or cat, the AI could say DOG dog. But if you said DOG dog, create me a dog now, an image of that, you couldn't do that. That's why that was earlier classification. Now for the first time, we can create images from text. Huge deal. And a lot of people made a career out of NLP, the natural language processing world, and they're very important. But a lot of them have practically gone redundant overnight because ChatGPT is just so good that all their research till of decades has been kind of overcompensated by this one really powerful technology. But this is what it does. We all know this. It's a pretty simple definition, so I'm not going to go into it further. Okay. And finally, when a business works and decides what their GenAI strategy should be, these are the questions they ask. They ask these questions: which layer do we have the biggest strength for, and which layer do we have the resources for? So if you talk about the LLMs like ChatGPT, still making, LLMs stand for large language models, which means they're actually large. They've got billions of parameters, like small neuron-like structures in it. So foundation models are those which take in data from scratch, raw data from the world, from so many sources, turns it into some form of intelligence. It's super expensive. This is the scale or like the order of magnitude of investment that goes, right? So only massive enterprises, governments, corporates can dream of doing this, right? And usually this is the job of a researcher to figure out how to make it happen. Then you go to the middle layer, where let's say we've got ChatGPT. In fact, let's take the example of Meta's Llama. Have you all heard of it, Meta Llama? So it's this new open source LLM, which is like a counter to the OpenAI and Google strategy, where they will keep it private and they will not make it public how they made it, thinking in the pretext of safety, but of course they have money to make. So Meta went the opposite route and said, we're going to make it open source. Now what's happening is a lot of countries, not just corporates, and even startups, they're picking up those models from GitHub, these online places where these models are hosted, and they're feeding it their own custom data. So let's say you're a law firm based in Singapore, right? And you're not going to be able to spend $100 million, no chance. Maybe the Justice Department, whatever is in Singapore right now, says we want all our data to be accessible and to intelligence systems. So they have the capacity to invest $10 million easily, right? They will say, okay, can we fine tune this Meta's Llama or ChatGPT model for our use case? Can it refer to our old cases and bring out previous judgments? These are the questions they'll start asking. And then they pick up from it, pick this model up, hire a few research and development people, R&D people, and they say this is all the data, organize it in whatever format. Can you please make it more suitable for our use case? This is still expensive. Why? Who has access to the law data or the medical data across so many different hospitals and places? It's very hard to get all of that. It's very hard to pay for the energy that is used in it. So that's why this middle layer is reserved again for larger companies or governments for specific use cases. And most money actually is going to be made on the middle layer. Practically more than foundation, because this is all going to be commoditized. They invest these billions of dollars and tomorrow someone else comes in and does it slightly better and their game is over. So it's extremely high risk reward ratio here. But it's like, it's like they're the farmers, these are the traders and who are probably processors, not traders, but processors, and those are the retailers equivalent. So the processors, the manufacturing units make actually more money than the farmers combined do. Why? Because the value add there happening is much higher in terms of the delta. So that's what's going to happen. Middle layer is going to be the most money making affair. So if you have your in particular fields of climate, law, medical, any of these, you're interested in making a big impact on that, this is where you go. Don't go to the app layer. And finally is the app, we all know this. ChatGPT is an app. It's not like, it's just meant to be an interface. It's a front end, right? So most startups that will come in, they will ever be only able to afford an app and maybe some shallow ways of the middle layer here, okay? So this is the kind of, business decision making that will go into whatever problem statement you're picking up. Even for this DBS problem that we have, I'm sure once we start breaking it down, we will find out opportunities for us to say, oh, these 2-3 problems can turn into a business unit itself. And this is how AI will go into it. So that's the objective, we'll pick it up. But so far, is it making sense? Should we go slower? Should we cover more details, lesser detail? Tell me that, and I'm going to kind of fine tune for the part here. All okay? Any questions? Oh, yeah. Fair enough. And I'm also going to open my beer if that's okay. Yeah. You could have probably pointed that out earlier. Okay. Now, once you decide that you've got to have once you've decided that, let's say, you can probably have the talent, the necessary expertise for the application layer, if let's say you've decided that, then you go further and get into this very important bit. And this is where a lot of the second level decision making is going to happen, which is which of these 3 paths do you pick, okay? So the wrapper is the simplest one, which is like literally like a dot. I know it doesn't look like a dot, but a wrapper is the simplest form of use case. It's like a micro use case. So if I make an app tomorrow, probably on GPT store, which all it does is it translates any text that I put in English and translates it into, let's say, Japanese. In this, I actually don't need practically anything. It's a micro use case. I don't need to optimize for, is it for legal English to legal Japanese? As in the context should be there or not? Is it for medical use? You don't care. So these problem statements will be there as cute little apps spread across everywhere. Some of them will actually make money because they're geniuses at SEO. So this is one of the opportunities. If you really want to get your hands dirty, this is the quickest one to get started. But then, what will happen is you will very soon realize it's hard to make money in this, and then you'll say, okay, let's say content creation, right? If you could only make an app which says I can convert any idea or a link into a YouTube script, right? That is a wrapper, like a micro use case thing. But if you said, you know what, after the script, I will also automatically plug this into this AI avatar who will speak on your behalf, right? And maybe after that, if you like it, you can press a button or whatever, and it'll be published across these 7 platforms with automated captions. We can all imagine this. Now we're not serving only one small thing. We're talking about a full sequence which is vertically integrated technically. In this case, vertically integrated of my objective is content publishing and creation. So I go there, put in the values or put in my ideas, and very quickly with a few clicks, it's published. That is deeper integration than just one problem. Now you're solving a bigger problem. And here is when you will make a more serious business out of it. Slightly more defensible business, which has some moat. So this is that vertical example. Similarly will happen for law and medical. You can imagine a physician going through these steps. Probably patient registration as step 1. Then consultation number 1, step 2. All of that being kept a track over time. Has to be done on an interface. So this will be where SaaS companies will either use AI or new SaaS companies will generate because of these interesting new problem statements that can be solved for the first time. So that is all vertical. This is the most funded set of ideas right now, right? All the big funding news that you think, which are not at the foundation layer and at an enterprise layer that we spoke about earlier, all the money, 90% plus or probably 97% of money is practically going in all vertical. That's because these guys will have the necessary margins to make money because they're solving a bigger problem. They can charge more, and it will be hard to switch from one solution to another once you have adopted it, right? So these are the advantages that you get with vertical. And then finally, the horizontal one is nothing but a set of micro use cases available quickly. So if you want to upscale your, like there are these many places, I'm sure you guys have figured out by now, places where you can go generate an image, you can upscale it, you can edit it a little bit here and there, have, all of those. These are not vertically integrated. You can do a miscellaneous set of things. These are aggregators, right? So for people who are not deep into tech or any domain, this is also a reasonable opportunity, but it's not a massive opportunity. So these are all the immediate use cases that you can look at as if you were to make a decision. All good? Any questions? Yes.
You hear about a lot of companies that are starting up, and essentially what they're doing is fine-tuning a foundation model and giving like a specific chatbot, right? So I have a legal assistant now, and I have a medical assistant now. They get funded. So my understanding was that a lot of the funding was actually towards these.
They may seem like micro use cases, they're not.
They have like further integration.
Yes.
So they can then
They're definitely not micro use cases. Those micro use cases are not getting funded. You don't need funding for it. The only funding you will need for it is probably to go and hire someone who's an expert at SEO so that you can rank higher, and every now and then the traffic pays you something. Of course, there'll be exceptions. We're not talking about that. But these are all like deeper integrated than you think, right? Okay, and to further oversimplify, in case you want to imagine what are the things you can, from very first principles, try and do with GenAI, these are the three big capabilities, or these are the three big deals of why, we need to pay attention. For the first time, even though we had AI for a long time, it's the first time we can talk to a computer like a human. We've never done that. It was a big deal when ChatGPT came out and they could just chat with it, speak to it now in audio. So you can talk to it, which is a huge barrier being prevented. A lot of programmers are a little anxious about this idea because they had this specialized knowledge for writing in the right syntax and putting the bracket at the right place, and nobody else could breach their expertise. So they're very upset about it, that, I can just talk to it and get my programming done. Weird, right? So talking to it is a huge deal, bigger than we think. Second, in some cases, things like art, right, which is what's been bothering a lot of people across the world, is that we all thought art and creativity and craft was truly essentially human. And that idea has been broken, right? We can now generate very high quality double quote art with AI, and it was unique to us. We were thinking that there's a popular YouTube comment that got really viral. It said, I want my AI to do my laundry and the dishes so that I can go paint and dance. I don't want my AI doing painting and dancing and photography so that I can do the dishes. So that's just a YouTube video and sounds profound now, right? And then finally, this is what my interest is, the third one. And this is not what a lot of people are talking about. Everyone's constantly discussing, what are humans good for now? Right? That's the kind of approach we take towards it. How much is it replacing a human, right? What part of our job will be gone? Which roles will be gone? We're not asking, what are the things I could not do yesterday that I can now do? Now, what are all those things, right? And why is this question important? Again, from a thinking framework perspective, this assumes the fact that we're not asking the third question a lot, at least in the popular narrative. I'm sure some of us are. But the impact of that is this. This assumes that the world is a zero-sum game. This assumes that all the problems that could be solved have been solved, or that need solving have been solved. Is that the case? If that was the case, if all problems were solved, we would be in a perfect world, right? That's not the case. We are far from being perfect, which means earlier there were some inherent challenges in the system, whether they be economic challenges, whether they be lack of resources of other than capital challenges, whether it be skill challenges, right? All of these challenges have now been kind of, and many of these challenges actually will be possible to overcome for the first time. So all the worries that we have about climate, let's say, When we go really deep into the problems of why climate change is such a hard problem, some of those AI can help us significantly with, right? Something as simple as weather modeling can help us save so many lives which are being lost due to floods and hurricanes and whatnot if we have accurate, better weather forecasting models. But that is not going to happen by regular computation. No ifs and thens can do that. So I'm interested in the third one, and I would love for all of us who are going to be taking up very important roles and positions to say, okay, let me also ask this question very actively now. And then finally, this is how we need to think about the replacement idea. There are 3 activities happening simultaneously at different places in different contexts. Some professions will be automated and some people will go out of the system for what they do today. That is a fact. The lowest hanging fruit was customer support, right? There are multiple escalation layers. The lowest escalation layer is practically going to be wiped out overnight if it hasn't yet. The lowest level. We're not talking all customer support industry. That's very important. So there are 2 kinds of consequences that will happen by the virtue of this automation and augmentation within customer support. Is one, all these existing roles will wipe out, but what will also happen is that the quality of customer service that you receive will usually go up. Okay? Because there are humans more dedicated to solving your problems at a deeper level, which machines still cannot do for many reasons. So one is that, but the second thing is a lot of small businesses who cannot afford a full-time team of 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 customer support people, who cannot afford it, simple as that. You've got a small accessories business. What are you going to do? You're going to hire 3 people at your call center? Is that the cost you're going to take? You are never going to do that. So those jobs will actually appear. This is an interesting way to think of it. So many more businesses can now afford better customer support, not through a robot only, but a human plus robot will be really powerful. So many of these people will shift into smaller businesses, right? And they'll be a part of the core team. You still need customer support. The need for customer support doesn't go away. The way it will be done is human plus AI. So those jobs, nobody talks about their creation. But there are millions of small businesses who will suddenly say, oh, you know what, I need one guy for customer support. I can now afford it. Or for all the queries, I can sleep peacefully at night. So that difference is a big one. And nobody's talking about it. Okay. So this is all the, this was a way for us to kind of visualize all the, like a macro landscape of the possible solutions that can happen, whether it be at a foundation level and what are the capabilities, what are the kinds of apps we're talking about, right? So that section we've covered. And how many of you have so far figured out why the fuck does LLM work? Does anyone know why LLMs work? Behind the scenes. Like, would you be able to guess? Like, but if you were to simplify and explain to a smaller child of, this is why LLMs work.
I think what they do is they're tokenizing your data and converting it into like a verb adjective, and they're forming a kind of a formula for how a sentence should look like. For example, an adjective should come before or after in certain languages with a noun, and that's how they're making a logic out of a sentence.
There's no concept of logic in LLMs, by the way. Logic and reasoning doesn't exist in the LLM world. That exists in the human world. It seems logical. Let me tell you, it has zero concept of logic. That I can tell you. So it's not learning logic for sure. Very interesting, right? Because it seems smart enough. It seems like it's getting me. Any guesses?
It has seen so many questions and answers. I mean, like, so much of things, so it knows how to respond to a different question if it's phrased differently.
Yeah, that is true. That we know. But that doesn't explain why it works, or rather how it works behind the scenes, right? Any last attempts?
Like, take examples of normal day speeches, right? And then it tries to like predict what the new output will be based on all the examples it has. So
Correct.
It's
So
searching and like sort of high enhanced search and.
in a way, it is enhanced search. In some way, you're actually closer to the idea, much closer to the idea than any of these. So this, I'll tell you in a very simple way, you'll be surprised by, oh, I kind of knew it all along. You all know how it works actually. And it's not the same way as humans. There is no correlation between how an LLM learns and performs and how a human learns and performs. There is zero correlation, by the way. Yeah, sorry, you're saying something?
No, I had a thought.
Okay. You want to say it out loud?
From my understanding, it's like basically you start with a
simple algorithm, you test it against the testing.
Correct.
See if it's true, if it's not, and you change the algorithm, and you just keep on changing the weights of the algorithm.
Yes, yes.
Until it matches the test data, and once you have that,
Yes.
it just assumes it works.
So what you said is precisely the engineering of it, how it's engineered and how the algorithms run. It's something called back propagation, which is a type of algorithm which reduces the accuracy and which reduces the error in accurately performing things. Now let me make it further simpler, okay? We've all typed on our phones and you've seen the words appear on top of it like this. Like, of course, it's like the bar is right above it, right? So if this is, we've all known that, right? So when you type TY, these are the possibilities that arise at this point. But it only recommends to you one in the center and two at the side. Have you seen it? The one in the center is the highest prediction guess of that system. And it's happening all locally, no fancy things happening, right? How it works is it looks at how frequently each of these words occur in the entire world's digitized data. Okay? So the word TYE, it has lost its popularity in popular these papers and cultural blogging even. Nobody's using the word TYE anymore as much compared to, let's say, a word like type. Type would be probably the most common. We can guess that from fairly, right? So it is easy. Think of it like an Excel, right? Where you, like TYE appears 10 times, but type appears 1,000 times. So all this algorithm is doing is when you type TY, it guesses which has the highest count after TY. Let me show that to the user. That's it. All it does is this, right? Now let's extend this further. Same logic, right? And by the way, these are the probabilities. See, of what is the odds of the next word being this. This is probability, like very micro. There are so many words you can have with TY. You extend this to not from a letter level now, you go to the word level. We've all seen this as well. We've always had this. This is not genius. When you say how, right, I'm sure this is a cleaned up list. Wherever I picked it up from, it's a cleaned up list for sure. We know there would be some funny ones as well. But when you write how, this is literally based on how many people have searched for that string. That search string is what it's called. So you've got these possibilities and a decreasing probability order. We can imagine this, it's very easy. Again, Excel based thing. You can all recreate this in Excel right now, literally in the next 15 minutes. Now comes slightly more complexity in this. It says instead of me trying to predict the next letter or the next word, basis the previous letter or the previous word, can I predict the entire, like can I take the entire sentence before it and try to predict the next word? The same logic literally. We're changing the units from letter to word to sentence. So this is the original line that has been written and it's trying to internally, whenever it sees this pattern, early one morning the sun, suddenly there are three possibilities that arise in its database. Some sentences said laying in bed, some sentences said shining, some sentences said still red. And this can go on to whatever level, right? We're increasing the complexity one level further. And by the way, at this point is when I say this is tokens. This is practically what tokens is. It's a weird form of a word for the computer. Like the way we think of words, computer thinks as tokens practically at this point. I know it's not technically sound a definition. Please don't hold me by it. But what it's doing now, what all an LLM does is just puts this on insane steroids. Now it sees in its database what is the frequency of every word or letter or sentence or paragraph that's going to come. So it's now, instead of at a word or sentence or paragraph, it's going at the entire article level. If the article says this, what's the next word it's most likely going to be? And then when it refers in its database, it all makes sense. It's just so complex, it's hard for it to imagine. But it's at least in our reach at this point, correct? So that is why there is a slang for LLMs for how it works. And that's called a stochastic parrot. Have you heard of it? So it's called a stochastic parrot. Stochasticity is about the probability of things. What is the odds something will happen? That's called stochasticity. And parrot, because it literally repeats its own database in new patterns. It is not creating something new by logic. You can use logic to create new things. An LLM cannot create logic because that concept of logic does not exist. The concept of frequency of odds exists. That's it. So I think this is a very interesting way to understand why all of this works. It's just so complex that it goes beyond our brain's comprehension, beyond the point. Yeah.
Does this also come under NLP? Like, is this a part of
It's,
processing, or is this
I think NLP was very similar to this. In fact, pretty similar to it's the same almost, but the difference is the way you would process this. That has had an upgrade. Why ChatGPT is a big deal is because of a couple of breakthroughs. Primarily one breakthrough, which is transformers. So there is a new mathematical concept that the mathematicians and the computational math people came up with, which is called transformers. And there's a very popular paper which is called Attention is All You Need. And we're not going to get into the tech of it, but the transformers is this weird function, mathematical function, which is able to capture this pattern in a smarter and more efficient way. So once we found out transformers, suddenly overnight things changed, right? Many other changes were incremental, like GPUs becoming smarter, energy being more available, data being more available to train on. So that's why when you train one ChatGPT, you technically cost $1 to $5 billion the range you spend, because internet's got terabytes of text data, images, not videos. Those will be very easy in terabytes. Yeah.
When you say transformers, you mean like something like a Fourier transform?
I wouldn't be able to tell that if it's the same as Fourier transform. I know it's a very complex mathematical function. That's all I know. But Fourier transform is practically used in all computational mathematics. So it'll be probably safe to say it's there and it's playing some role.
Does this computation actually happen real time?
to query the entire database?
No, so it's not querying the same way as you would do like a Google search. It's not the same way. So there is, at the time of capturing data and making, training it, the word is training. At that time, you're teaching the LLM to recognize patterns first. But then when you use ChatGPT, there is something called inference. How can you use that learnt ability and deploy it for this particular query? In that, it's a very casual way of saying, yeah, it looks up the entire database. It does, but it's not the same way as searching a string in a Excel. It's not the same. But for very casual reasons, I can say yes. That'll go in very technical, so but fair to imagine that. Okay, so that's where we are. Is this bringing greater clarity on the idea of GenAI and what it is and how it works? I hope none of this was super technical, right? Awesome. Okay. Do you want a break before we start the next one? I realize we've probably taken more than half an hour or something in this. Are we good? Okay. Huh? Cool. So, let me pull this out. Yeah. Unfortunately, this was too much information to be captured in a presentation. But this is the part where we get specific about what are the ways each of these industries are going to see interventions by GenAI. Now, I mean, if there is a particular industry that you're more interested in, we can go deeper into it, but I've got too many, okay? So I don't want to pick all of them. I'll be very specific about which examples I take. So we've got what? Healthcare, education, content creation, filmmaking, customer support, law, manufacturing, scientific research, robotics. We've broken down every single industry into what are the top possibilities we can see immediate interventions in. This is probably not super long term. This is short to mid term. These are the ways it's going to bring in value. So let me pick a few. Hold on. We've got strategy and consulting, for instance, HR, finance. Let me pick one. Which one do you want to pick as an industry, guys? You tell me. Manufacturing? How much are we comfortable in manufacturing? It'll be hard to actually cover. I just realized, yeah. Filmmaking. Okay, let's do that. That's my favorite. Because I've spoken to a lot of filmmakers back in India, a lot of directors, writers, all hating AI at the time they start the session. They're all skeptical. They don't want AI. It's like an attack on your livelihood. But by the end of it, they hopefully, and visibly go home with a belief that this is a huge opportunity for them. I think filmmaking is the one which is going to see the biggest positive impact of AI. It sounds the exact opposite of what you would imagine by default, that, oh, I can now generate images and videos on a tap. What are the filmmakers going to do, right? And which is a false idea, because you're reducing the idea of filmmaking to producing images and videos. Filmmaking is inherently the art of storytelling in a very powerful way and using all tools at your disposal. So tools become better over time, but the core of it, which is storytelling and creating something which moves you, that is always going to be beyond the scope of AI. I mean, at least for the next many decades, right? So let's take this one. So first one, I think, which I think is very cool, is the visual effects and animation world. It's going to see an explosion. Earlier, you would sit frame by frame, craft your characters. Each character being crafted would be of the order of anything between $10,000 to $100,000 for the artist to create that one character to a set of characters, depending on the budgets and complexity. So this was the scale, which means it's always going to be very hard to produce a film which is in the animation and 3D and visual effects world for someone with small budgets. They simply can't. Now, if you have a vision, you can probably sit down at your computer, apply hyper-realistic VFX on it for so much cheap. There are tools which right now exist, which can turn me right now, like for example, if I'm walking here, it can turn this into a sword and perfectly held in my, hand, and the backdrop can be Mortal Kombat. All of that can happen in real time as I speak, which means that you don't need fancy bodysuits, 100 cameras to track you from all angles so that they can replicate the VFX. You don't need all of that. Because of AI, even when AI is only looking at me from one angle, this is happening, I forgot the name of the app. I'll tell you later. So there's an app which, literally an iPhone app. You put it in front of you, it is able to imagine if this is what I look here and I've worn a grey jacket. On the back side, I probably also have a grey jacket. But there is some probability, it could have been black, right? So it will by default guess that what are the odds if this is grey from the front, it will be grey from the back. It knows my body proportions, and without me turning at all, it can create a 3D video of me around me. You see what I'm talking about here? Look at the impact of this. If you're literally sitting in your dorm room, got an app, and suddenly you're capturing videos in insane 3D without needing more than 1, 2, 3 cameras. The best ones are, of course, 3 cameras and stuff at this moment. But 1 camera is also surprisingly good. So I probably have that tool somewhere. I can show you. Do you want to see that right now? Should we take a minute for it? Because I'm going to search for it right now. Move.ai. One sec. Yes, I got it right at the first time. This is the one. This is commercially available for at least casual filmmakers. It may not produce the next Tom Cruise movie at this moment, fair enough. But if you're a filmmaking student, you should be on the 7th moon or 9th cloud, whatever that phrase is. Okay, let's see, where is that video? Okay, look at this.
Hey, what's up everyone? It's Tino from...
Oh, we don't have audio transferring from here? Where is Puneet?
Show you how to capture
The audio doesn't go here?
animation like this.
Oh, I'll do this. Okay, hold on.
Using our marvelous motion capture.
Fair enough, I sorted this.
Hey, what's up everyone? It's Tino from Move.ai, and today I'm going to show you how to capture high fidelity animation like this using our marvelous motion capture platform.
This is one angle 3D conversion.
Step 1, capture. Now, all we need is a camera system, like for example some GoPros, and some space. There's absolutely no need for a suit or any markers on your body at all. And then we're going to start capturing some movements. And this could be anything from dancing, action, acrobatics, idling, whatever you like. Step 2, convert. Now, all we have to do is upload the videos, configure some settings, and then we hit run. Step 3, create. Now we export the animation, open in your favorite 3D software, And that's it. 3 simple steps for creating high-fidelity, AAA quality animation using our markerless motion capture platform.
Isn't this surprising, right? This is one of my favorite examples to say because the VFX and graphic animation industry is going to win huge time. Suddenly, a lot of people who could not imagine doing this will start coming up and say, oh, you know what? I made a YouTube video, just put up last night, made a 3D movie of 3 minutes. That's going to happen soon. Because overnight I had an idea, I put it into execution, created a character by typing it out. I acted like the character in front of my 2-3 iPhones, got my friends to also download the app. This is the kind of conversation that's going to happen. And you'll put it out on YouTube, maybe you're lucky it goes viral, and then a lot of companies start reaching you. Can you do that for me? I've got a new campaign coming up. I need a 3D character for it, just like Vodafone had once, right? So you see how they would have an opportunity in this. So being creative at this moment, it opens up your tool set. If you're creative, you want more tools at your disposal so you can make something more impactful. That's the power of something like this. And then similarly, we have the interactive and immersive experiences. So as VR is becoming cheaper, AR is becoming cheaper, and the headsets are becoming lighter by the day, we are going to see a huge uptick in the sales of all these devices. They will be used for 2 purposes. First, gaming, and second, productivity, right? That's what Apple Vision Pro is promising. That is what Meta Quest 3 is. Have you guys tried the VR headsets, the latest ones? Anyone's tried it? Also, and nobody's experienced the latest one or the older one. Okay, so probably then it would not hit home immediately, but the older ones are fairly clunky. You would move around and you would see a lag. And then you say, oh, come on, this is not real, right? If you would have a controller in your hand, it would not show it properly. Now it happens far more accurately, which makes it nearly impossible to tell what's real, what's not. Nearly. So we're already there. Now, when these headsets are literally in every third home, there is a new market that's going to open up. One, for gaming, but second, for immersive films. So it's like a game that you're watching, but you're immersive in it. You're a part of this movie in some ways. So a new kind of filmmaking will come out of this. Certain formats will change to it, not all. And again, that's an explosion of new opportunities. For low budgets, you can create more and higher quality art. Better stories told through better tools. That's where the opportunity lies. Does this make sense? Right? So that's going to happen, and my prediction is this, and I'm betting big on this. If there was a stock I could bet on, which existed like this, on this opinion, I would bet on it, which is the film world is going to see an explosion of micro studios. Right now, for you to have a studio, Hollywood studio, you're probably a $10 billion affair at the, in terms of valuation, $1 billion affair, if someone was to sell off all your assets and the brand. Now, there will be I know story writing, you know editing, you know direction a bit more. 3 of us get a $100 subscription to a software. A couple of our friends act like monkeys and we have a chimpanzee movie coming out. You see? So it's a micro studio. And that is going to explode the democratization. Once, if you had to put out a film, you would have to go through so many distributors and reach to the feature film. There was so much gatekeeping happening. Right now, the gatekeeping from video publishing and distribution is gone because of YouTube and some bit because of OTTs, right? Same is going to happen in production, which means you can now produce it for so cheap that you don't need to beg for an opportunity to this film producer who's probably exploiting you if you're really desperate. So that's going to bring power back to individual artists. Now, this is the exact opposite thesis of what you would hear in the news. Fair enough? In the news, everyone's losing jobs, right? So we've got filmmaking, maybe we can, and the same logic kind of applies to content creation. I'm right now making a lot of videos. 70% of my content is automated. 70, not 100. And that automation means I kind of keep a feed of the latest news coming in at one place. Whatever I like, I curate and put up some links, put in my opinions on it of what I think it means for the world. Whatever news comes out, right? And if a new tool comes out, I want to teach how it works. I create the script, first draft of it, very high quality using ChatGPT and now Claude Sonnet, right? So the script is the very high quality, first draft is ready, I make some tweaks. Then my editor uses this tool called HeyGen. Have you heard of HeyGen? So this tool lets you automate your presentation in front of the camera. So you put in a script, a guy which looks exactly like me, basically me, and I'll show you a video of mine. You'll see how real it is. Let me show you one. And I have had 0 comments in over a few million views, which say, this is not you. Literally, that's how good it is. Now that I've told you, you'll catch it. So let me show one example here. Oops. Okay, so this one is my real self, okay? You can see very clearly real, right? Got it? And I'll show you the one. I usually ask people to guess, but right now, in the interest of time, okay, let's do this.
Because this highway is soon going to have a brain. This is not science fiction. It's happening now on India's Mumbai-Pune Expressway.
I don't know, you guess. Maybe I'm lying. It's a bluff.
200 smart cameras act as the highway's eyes and brain. And this AI doesn't miss a thing, whether it be speeding vehicles, broken down cars.
There's a reason we have got a bunch of B-rolls on it.
Even issue fines autonomously without needing cops. With up to 60,000 vehicles daily,
Right?
management can never be enough. This AI promises safer and faster journeys for everyone. Here's the question for you. Which traffic cop?
Fair enough. I mean, I haven't revealed yet, but you want to guess if this is me or not? It could be a bluff. Sorry, any opinions? You're confused, guys. I'm winning. If you're confused, the game is over. You don't have to guess, really. So this one was AI. This one was AI, yes. But you were confused for a bit. So that's the point. So we're talking about, see, this thumbnail, I don't have a black jacket. I don't have it. I don't know how to pose for a camera, for that matter. Right? Let me, if I have anything cool, let me figure something out.
Can you show the used ChatGPT in Excel sheets?
Are you going to browse my feed in the middle of the presentation? I don't know, why are we... Oh, this one is not me speaking actually. This is a completely edited tutorial. We are experimenting with so many formats. Half of them flop. Oh, where is the audio? Yeah, trending video audio. I don't know. Why are we watching this? So, I think, yeah, that's about it, huh? Oh, yeah. Are you guys actually doing your assignment with this? All of you guys on laptops? Should we hack your assignment? For the next half an hour, take a break and we'll all figure out a way to do it quickly. Okay, so this was content creation. Again, the way YouTube made so many creator millionaires and people who could count on it for livelihood. When YouTube came, it actually took away the power from the consolidated studios. And it said, you know what, maybe can more people have more interesting stories to tell, entertainment, education, whatsoever, right? It actually generated so much more employment than it took away, right? Fair enough? And that was never expected during the time of YouTube. They thought terrible filmmaking is yet to come. Who's going to spend so much time editing? It's a job of full-time filmmakers to sit down, record, edit. How would a regular person know how to act? These were the questions people threw and said, this is never going to work. It sounds very odd now, right? So that's the same with AI at this point. And you've got, I'm not covering these tools, but if you, at any point of time, if this industry is useful to you, I can stop and you can take a photograph. I'll tell you one more use case, probably the last one. We'll take healthcare. Okay. The first one we've already covered. You can, AI has been for the last 10 years pretty good at taking MRIs and CTs and accurately guess 95 to 99% of the times, depending on the use case, whether this is a tumor or not. And if it is, what is the size, how bad, what stage. It can do all of that today. And a real close friend of mine started this company, Cure.ai, and they've been selling it to the US markets, FDA approved AI tech 7 years ago. That's when they were doing this, right? And he's now one of the leading voices for healthcare AI adoption. So it's because they had one of the earliest successes in this market. And that was all because they had access to a lot of privileged proprietary data from the government, from a lot of private entities. They struck deals. And from there, they said, okay, we know these outcomes. Let's train on this. This X-ray told me this. Let me put this into the computer. And they did this for 1 million more times. So that was one of the popular one. I love this particular as well, drug discovery. So how drug discovery today works is you've got millions and millions of compounds that you can probably create and test out, right? And the risk there is you can't first test it out on a human quickly. You have to test it out in smaller ways, in a petri dish, on a rat, on a pig. That's how it usually goes. But even then, there are millions of possibilities. How are you ever going to financially, viably execute it? That's why drug discovery is so hard. They literally...
So there are quite a lot of examples here. I think there's something else that catches our eye. Right. The legal case is pretty straightforward, right? The research is something that is imagine. That's going to help us research, manufacturing is going to be a little more learned. So science. Okay, I think this is one of my favorite ones. I've been a science kid, so I think AI is going to accelerate science pretty immediately, very soon. Accelerate science, and it will probably not assist you in the lab yet. It will also probably not help you create the new theory of life or theory of this universe. None of those. I'm not talking about those. So I'll tell you a very interesting case. Is that recording on, by the way? Read.
Yeah, recording us. David? Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, so
this is a recent study that came out, which is of interest to practically all of us. So you've heard of this drug called metformin that's used for treating the diabetes patients. They've all got practically metformin or one of its cousin variants. And all of this time, it's been super ultra cheap drug being used to manage diabetes better. And it's been seen as like a medicine to kind of cope with life kind of a situation. And there is new evidence that has come out, which is a very accidental evidence. Science has a lot of very interesting accidents happening all the time. One of these is this, because I was recently studying a lot of anti-aging science and longevity. And this Brian Johnson guy, if you've heard of him, please look up Brian Johnson. Insane guy, okay. And he talks about a lot of ways to kind of reverse aging. There's a lot of progress that's happening. Some of that is faff, a lot of people are there. But what they found accidentally was that through the studies which were already published about metformin and diabetes, they always had a control group of people who never had diabetes, who were not given metformin, then people who had diabetes and were given metformin, and those who did not have diabetes and they were also given metformin, just for control group, okay, to see what happens to regular people who don't have diabetes and how do they respond to it. What they actually found out much later in the study is that people who did not have diabetes and took metformin, small amounts of it, they all lived longer than the counterparts who did not have metformin. So like, I don't have diabetes and I take metformin, I'm going to live longer than you if you don't have diabetes. Interesting, right? But then it became crazier when they found out that people with diabetes who took metformin actually lived longer than people who never had diabetes. And of course, did not take metformin. Now, why I'm telling you all of this is because you find these information out not by there is no commissioning of research that happened to say, you know what, let's test out metformin randomly to see its anti-aging effects. Nobody did that. But they found out through meta studies later and then said, there seems to be a weird trend. We need to validate it with a proper clinical trial now. And they found out this correlation was pretty strong. And now people like Brian Johnson and Peter Attia and many more people out there, David Sinclair, they take a small dosage of metformin every single day. I'm not advocating it. The point is that meta studies is a thing where you look at thousands and millions of already published scientific research and you derive new insights that, let's say, some Chinese university did something, some French university did something on a similar topic, American ones. And imagine there's always secondary research that is published, right? And study of studies is published. There are different words for it, but meta research is the word. How do you do research over already researched things? So AI is going to accelerate that tremendously, which means without running one extra clinical trials, we will have so many thousands of propositions coming in that, hey, let's perform a trial on this, and we'll discover new knowledge like never before. Fair enough? So I think this is one very cool application of GenAI for anyone who's interested in scientific research. They should look it up. But yeah, that's about it. I think we've covered a lot of these use cases. If someone wants to really nerd it out, here's some information from the top VCs who are investing in AI, okay? They've listed out their thesis of what they believe is the next big opportunity in AI and what areas they would like to put their money in. And a lot of these will not make sense right now, so I'm not going to cover it, but if you're interested, take a photograph, maybe research it later. This has been compiled from a bunch of VCs, and there is some more after this. So see, foundational layer, infrastructure layer, separate layers are there. Like under the LLMs, there is, of course, chips. That is the infrastructure layer. We never even spoke about it, but someone has to sit down and make chips. Someone has to innovate energy also. That's infrastructure, because we don't have enough energy to train GPU models at this front. So we have a big problem on our hands. If we don't treat it well, we'll and you can take it up as well. See, look at the word vertical mentioned so many times. The value lies in going deep in a flow of whoever's problem you're solving. You're solving for a doctor, solving for a nurse, you're solving for a professor. Go really deep into it, use a lot of AI in it, and suddenly you will have a lot many more business models coming out. So I am expecting like at least 50 to 100 new categories of business models that are worth studying now. Because they're going to solve problems for people who it did not make sense to solve earlier at all. Now suddenly you'll be paying attention to that small market which no big company is interested in, but you will make it a lifestyle business. Why? Because let's say you're connected with the doctors in Singapore and each of them can pay you $100 a month. You'll say, okay, maybe if I can get all the, even 1,000 doctors to buy my product, I'm good with $100,000 a month coming up. So this is what's going to happen. A lot of new problem statements will unlock and they'll become viable because it's cheap to build them. It's simply cheap to build them. You don't need a big fancy team of techies working for you anymore. So there you go. All these opportunities have been identified. One second. Okay. And here's this particular framework that I created last week, which can help us actually, let's say if you were, when you get out of NTU and you're a part of a bigger team, let's say, and you have to figure out the strategy for what can GenAI do for this company, right? Which teams can GenAI help save costs in, make them more productive? Which can we multiply our revenues in some smart way? These are the strategic questions you will be faced with, and then you will think about, okay, what do I do? These are the steps you can look at. I'm sure you have a lot of frameworks for these problem statements that you solve day to day, but here's a good way to look at it. We need to break everything down to the smallest flows. Like in every organization, you've got to figure out one at the first level, instead of straight away going for, okay, this is a healthcare company, let me look up all the healthcare tools. That's one approach. You can do that. But if you're trying to be a bit more creative than that and have a deeper insight, what you would do is this. You would say, okay, let me find out the ways, like the areas where revenue maximization or cost reduction has the biggest opportunity. Fair enough? Very obvious. Then you'll go ahead and break it down to workflows for whoever is the process, like every person involved in a flow. Let's say it's something as simple as a identifying prospects for a healthcare company looking for small clinics and hospitals. That could be a company which sells software to them, right? What you would do is you would say, okay, what do some of my existing customers look like, their profile, and what do their teams look like? Who's going to be using it? Is it going to be at the reception? Is it the nurse entering the data, medical data? Is it the doctor uploading the prescription, right? And maybe it's moving from there to the pharmacist. You'll have these workflows defined for different kinds of roles in every problem you solve, or every software that's going to solve a problem for them, right? So you break it down into each of these small steps, who's doing what when, right? We've done these workflows, you've made a lot of these. And then you kind of move on to this idea that if I were to intervene here, what could have building an intelligence in this step mean? Can I automate this completely? Can I skip this completely? Then it's 100% cost reduction at this point. Maybe you say data entry takes too much time and because of that my service is slow. And then you say, okay, can I have optical character recognition? This is how you break down in micro steps. Never try to think of GenAI at a broad level. Oh, healthcare use cases. That's what we were doing so far, right? Now we're going deeper, further one layer of how your meeting will practically simulating the meetings and the conversations you're going to have with your colleagues and probably the CEO of the company and the chief strategy officer. This is where the conversations will go. We'll come up with a very cool flowchart made on some fancy tool like Miro, and you'll identify those spaces where you think intelligence has scope. You won't think too much then. And then you say, for this use case, is there something that exists out there? If not, is it quick for us to build in-house? And that's where your strategy moves closer and closer to action and decision making. You may come up with a report that presents that these 3 areas have been identified in terms of the impact expected and the cost of intervening in it. So you will have those, if the tools exist, you propose them, otherwise you hire a team, an agency, make a custom solution. All those decisions are happening here. And finally, of course, you don't know if everything works out, you're going to run a pilot, and we're going to have the entire presentation made out of. I can imagine, you can visualize a presentation like this, right? Where you literally walk through different sections and say that these were the findings and this was the method and approach. But for specifically GenAI, you will have, the only big question that you ask is, how do I break it down to the smallest bits and each step of the flow? And then, is there an intervention possible? I will, I'll come to that. You'll be overwhelmed with so much that's about to come, which is something like this. So, this was the broad approach, okay? And now we'll talk about precisely what are the ways you would assess every solution. This is where the real meat of you having the frameworks in your mind are very clear on this hype that's been created. There's a lot of hype about AI also coexisting with a lot of ignorance about it, right? We don't know what are all the ways we could be using it. And the ones that we think it can be used for, we are over-imagining it. Like the ChatGPT AGI thing that I was pointing out. I have no reason to believe that this intelligence will be AGI. It will be still very smart. You'll have robots. You already have some robots. They'll be smarter and smarter every day. But I wouldn't be very careful of using the word AGI. So, you can make a note of this particular thing, by the way. The GenAI capabilities. Earlier, we had a very simplistic version of it, which was it can talk like humans. It can make decisions like humans. But that wasn't enough for you to make an actual business decision. This is where the precise use cases lie, 3 big ones. This is not the only one. I've picked up the 3 big ones as the categories of use cases. Number 1 is the most high-paying use case at this moment. Bigger than, the most money right now is being made in the step 1, number 1 this, where you have a lot of unstructured text data filled up somewhere on government websites. Then you've got to bring out all the relevant data and put it in a structure, right? So that it is analyzable. That was very hard to do. You could not employ hundreds of thousands of people to document millions and millions of documents. Lying in law and research and healthcare, you can't do that. So this is where GenAI is very, very useful. It can break down and classify and convert raw text into organized data. Banks are using it a lot. For example, the KYC process. It was already there to an extent. It's just insanely more powerful. OCR is what it was called, optical character recognition. It was so bad for most enterprise use cases that they kind of gave up on it altogether. As an enterprise, you cannot afford wrong data. Now you have higher accuracy. You can employ human annotators on top of it, people who will look at the data and then say whether right or wrong rather than fill in that data. So there is going to be new kind of interaction here.
What were they using earlier for this optical character recognition?
That was also some form of machine learning. So for example, if you write 2, you can, your and my handwriting would be different, right? And I would scribble a bit more, it would be thicker, it would be sometimes blue and red, and a fat 2 or a slim 2. There will be so many variants. It would take those instances into its data set, and net intelligence was whether is it 2 or 1 or 7. Is that good enough for most use cases? Not really. That's why the MCQ question sheets that you fill, A, B, C, D, you mark this dot, it's practically still happening, right? It's because we're not good at OCR. We're terrible at it. It was a false dream whenever they must have been hyping it, I'm sure. When it came out, wow, we'll digitize every government data out there because just by taking us or scanning it. Never happened. It never happened. So we still need those structured ones where you mark it so that you can read, okay, 1C, 2B, 3D, so on. So this is first. Second is natural language processing and communication. Customer support is an instance of it. You can now suddenly start talking like humans and thinking like humans for at least most simple use cases. This physician example was complex. Natural language processing is not sufficient for it. But customer support of most frequently asked questions of when is this going to be activated, if I have bought it yesterday and I could only pay 50% advance. If this is a query, which system is going to automate it except GenAI, right? You see, because this problem is unique to me and it may be hard for me to discover a solution, I'll need to call up an agent who will then do the same thing that LLMs are going to do now. So that's customer support, maybe a lot of mental health applications would be there. They will all be assisted by a trained professional. You will not have suddenly all therapists being replaced by a GPT bot. That's not going to happen. But it will help a lot of people who cannot afford mental health services have layer 1 of interaction with all. I hope the people who come out with these products are mentioning these cautions of what could go wrong and what you should believe and what you should not. So it's a product design challenge, but it's not anymore an impractical thing to think of. So we've got that. And then finally, the third one is where the filmmaking content creation world exists. Marketing world exists. Marketing is harder than filmmaking in some ways. Casual filmmaking, of course, because in marketing, you need precise assets. You will generate a casual art of, let's say, a dog sitting by the beach is much easier for AI to do than to say, draw me a poster which helps me convert more on Google Ads, right? And has this information presented in different ways. What color scheme would work? It is more complex than generating this dog at a beach. So marketing is going to take a little bit longer, but I think they'll crack it. So that's generating media example. In case you guys don't know, there's a super cool tool which is Ideogram version 2.0, which I strongly recommend anyone who wants to play with this for poster designs and stuff, right? It's like a Canva on steroids at this point. You can't edit too much, but that's one of the earliest tools I've been using. Creates the best logos of all, creates the best casual posters of all. That's the one people don't know usually. Midjourney, everyone knows. DALL-E 3, everyone knows, believe. There's Stable Diffusion. Flux, I told already. It's great at generating human faces, and it can also be used to customize or rather train your AI clone. Here I'm highlighting some of the use cases in terms of broad categories again. And instead of going into the industry, I'm going into the category of use cases here. So right now, and this is the question I usually prompt everyone to think. At this stage, with whatever capabilities AI has, what practical things is it good for? What is it not good for? And what will it take for it to become that good? What challenges does it overcome? This is breaking it down into a more structured framework instead of saying, hey, AI is great for this, AI is not great for this. Like making broad statements like filmmaking, AI will take it over. What part of filmmaking will AI take over? How well is the better question to ask. So you've got content creation, for example, casual content creation ke liye research, high quality first drafts, see, not scripting, high quality first drafts, talking head videos that I already showed you. I do a lot of brainstorming. That physician example was like an advanced brainstorming in some ways, right? But it's not good for academic research. You need to be precise with your figures, facts. If you're doing journalism, you don't want to misquote some companies' numbers which can have an impact on their stocks. It'll probably be considered not stupid but unethical if you do that, right? If you're presenting an assignment, it goes here, casual, because it doesn't have real world impact yet. Then expressive videos compared to talking head videos, right? You won't have AI skits coming out, like a guy jumping around and doing stupid things to make you laugh on a reel. That's not going to happen very soon. But that guy may not need a bodysuit to look like a monkey anymore. That is filmmaking. It's good enough for that. And then these are the challenges you need to overcome. Web browsing is shit right now. Perplexity is the best tool. I assume you guys have used it. ChatGPT browsing is terrible. But web research is obviously the most important bit. I think it needs a big jump. And I've mentioned this here because I think we are overestimating its power until the browsing thing is fixed. It's pretty mediocre at best, right? We've used Perplexity yet. Oh, then I guess for you it will be still a positive jump. But do try out Perplexity. You've used it, right? So the guy who started Perplexity looks like you. I'm not kidding, you can look up. I just realized while talking this. So it's also very hard for AI to follow your exact prompt still. It's becoming better and better, but you don't have as much control as you would like for it to be useful for very high-end use cases where you need to be precise. You can't get precision right now. So we're struggling with these things. We've already spoken about all of these. You can use it for mood boards if you're designing your home. Create mood boards will be out. It'll give you sample casual interiors overlaid on your actual space. Great. But you won't be able to turn it into architectural requirements. Now we're getting serious. So these are the spaces, these are the questions that I think all of us can think of whenever we're taking up a problem statement for our context. So these are so many challenges which I've identified, broken down. We don't have still a great character and scene consistency. You regenerate that character in another context, the character's face is different, the background is also not pretty much, it doesn't align in a practical way, even if you were to generate it in a similar way. So there's a lot that's going to come in. And yeah, this we've spoken about real-time human interactions is customer support in many, many ways. Does this sound good? Any use cases that you can think of which you're very impressed by or you hope becomes great? Nobody's thinking about AI so far, huh?
How about auditing? Do we have use cases in auditing?
Like tax auditing? The first thing that we mentioned, converting unstructured data to structured data, I think that is the capability that you will have in auditing. I don't know in what form. I don't know enough about auditing. But if I can think of one very solid one, auditing is about, in some ways, fact check. Whether this is factually right and whether it falls under the compliances, whether it be financial, legal, whatever. So if you can have an intelligent system which can read natural language or documents and comprehend in a similar way as humans, now it can fact check at scale and flag out the yellow and red ones. So accelerated auditing is going to be an actual thing, for sure. I'm sure someone's working on it. Since that's not my area, so I haven't gone deep into it. And finally, this is the coolest equation, the most simple, stupid equation that will, again, as in the strategy room kind of conversation, this is what you will talk about. What you would say is, instead of saying, is AI good or bad? Is it ready to adopt for me or not? Two different questions, right? We're not judging AI, we're assessing its capabilities for our use case. That's what we've been doing. So that's called adoption readiness. It's not some term you will find elsewhere, I just came up with it. But what we're saying is we take all the capabilities, we identify requirements using the approach that we earlier went through, and these are so many parameters where, one sec. Like if you really go down, like get down to the business of getting into the details and trenches, these are the questions you will ask, right? So first one is quality. Is it good enough, right? We saw the version 1 of Midjourney. Please take a photograph. This might be really handy when you're doing this. In fact, I'm going to turn all of this into a prompt, like a ChatGPT bot, so that we can have like a MBA level interaction, business strategy level interaction with AI with it, right? So you're going to ask this question: is the quality good enough roughly at human level? Minimum. Exceeds, great. So distorted AI fingers was a thing, right? Everyone's seen that. So when it had those problems of those fingers being out of place, it was practically good for nothing. Nothing, right? And then this problem got cured. Suddenly there's a friend of mine who's making jewelry photo shoots with fake models, wearing fake jewelry, but ultra realistic, disturbingly good, right? That's the word. Disturbingly good is where it's gone now. Then can it handle necessary complexity? And that's why I think filmmaking will never be automated. It's too complex for any system to process. You can't give enough context about such a complex art form, right? You simply can't. So a simple email response is simple, it's in complexity, but if you're writing a hit piece, right, as a journalist, you better not use AI in casual ways. It's not good enough there yet, right? It's not going to give you the best facts. It's known for hallucinating. It's known for spitting out incorrect facts. Similarly, you've got, is there an objective way of assessing success? That's a question to ask again. Why? If you're making something for stock markets, you can look back and say precisely where you were right and wrong. It's objective decision making there. But when it's art, again, you can't say the dog is precisely sitting at the beach in the way I imagined. That doesn't matter as much anymore. So it can be an indeterminate thing. There is no one right answer to this. Those places, GenAI would do far better. And this is why also I recommended earlier when the physician conversation was happening, that we will get at least 3 hypotheses from it, not 1. If you force 1 on it, you're expecting it to be accurate, which is a false notion. Accuracy is not a concept. Truth is not a concept in the LLM world. It does not know what truth is. It simply does not know. And people think hallucination is a bug. It's the natural consequence of trying to build fancy prediction machines. There's no hallucination in that world. It's all stochastic prediction. What's more likely? Let's just say it out. It just happens to be sophisticated enough to say out truth most of the times. But most is not good enough if you're doing something really fancy. So these are the list of things, and I think rest of them might become pretty obvious by itself given you know this. But I would avoid going into high stakes scenarios today with AI. Like, it'll be very tricky to recommend a physician to adopt it immediately. I would put so much caution and caveat in it, right? So it'll be hard to probably sell this solution today. Tomorrow, someone may come up with an option. And you can take the photograph of this as well, the bottom half. A couple of you were taking this. So then you eventually get down to, is privacy standards being followed, as security, blah, blah, blah. There is just so many factors to consider when you're sitting in an enterprise who needs to be compliant with every single law of the land, and they can't afford any mistakes on any fronts. And so that's why I'm changing the colors from green to yellow to red. It's like, how rigorous do you want to get? Green is the minimum. This is the minimum rigor you would follow. Yellow is like, okay, let's get serious. And red is, we are implementing it tomorrow, right? We account for every damn thing. Does this help? It's becoming a little too bookish at this point. So I'm sharing all of this, by the way. This is the first time I'm presenting this because nobody except, at this leadership level or you guys as MBAs would appreciate this. Do you realize that, right? This is actually like very rigorous if you look at it. So I'm rushing through this, but if you want me to pick up any of this and break it down, happy to do that, and then we can move on. Anything? Cool. So there we go. Some open thoughts happening here which are not supposed to be here. Okay, and I think we're entering the last part of it. This is the a quick little again framework for you to think of. Instead of thinking of AI as an entity, think of it like a team. It's a major mental model hack. Stop thinking of it like AI can do this for me. Which AI can do what for me? Even within ChatGPT, you can make your own little bots and teams. One's great at design and if fed in the instructions in advance. This is the kind of branding that we follow, and this is the kind of communication standards. This is our company vision. A developer, researcher, there are tools that have come up like Crew AI is one. You might want to look at it. CREW AI. If you want to test out like your own mini team. I have personally made 110 bots total so far. I use around 25 of them regularly. But 110 bots is in the last 1 year or so, right? And all of them for some weird micro use case. Like even for this particular presentation, I have a bot at this point. It's like when I want to do a bit more brainstorming and challenge myself, like, am I sure? Okay, then I put it and say, can you point out the flaws in this, right? I actually push myself to think critically through AI that way. So it's like a friend who doesn't, or rather who doesn't lie in that sense. Really smart friend. Okay. This is a very interesting way of looking at, since you're going to go into different kinds of careers from here, you might want to look at the broad, like at a more individual level, if you were to think where am I placed and what's going to change for me and how do I prepare better. This is a small little thing where you say, so I like to think of it this way. People with a very strong why, very high clarity of purpose and drive and, people with a very strong why usually take up leadership roles and they hire people for what project will take me there, what partnership will take me there, right? And then those people need to have domain knowledge, they need to have some experience, they need to be strategic in their thinking. And then the people they hire for what's, they hire people with hows. Okay, can you code this for me? You know already what product you want to build if you're a what, right? But then for a developer, for an artist, for a graphic designer, you need those skills, you need to take certain actions and you need certain resources and all is done, right? That's how things usually work. It's a very oversimple way of thinking of this. Now, why I'm saying this is because of very powerful tools that AI is going to offer us, this is going to be the proportion of it. There'll be much, much more power that will shift into the hands of people with a strong why, right? So if you've got these things taken care, it's easier for you to get a tool and, get that graphic out quickly, get that first piece of blog post out quickly. It may not be world class, but you're not waiting to hire the first person to get it going. So you're far more resourceful than ever. If you want to do a business, you have much more at your disposal for much cheaper. That means you have higher odds of success in whatever capacity. So I think this is a good way of looking at it and reflect. This is more like a reflective question of, do I really know myself? Do I really know where I want to go? What do I care about? Purpose is nothing but what do I care about, right? So if you really know those questions, you will have more tools at your disposal than to wait on other people to give you opportunities. I think that is true democratization, where people who have a clear why will dominate the world even more. They always did. Okay, so I think before we pick up this case study, if we have the time for it, I know it's been a little long. We've got what time is it? 6. Yeah. So I'm going to sum up the things here, and we've got a little bit of ChatGPT framework which I'll let you take a photograph of instead of talking about it. I've devised a small little framework where you can use it practically, and like every single thing that you do in your ChatGPT will just be improved. And we'll close at that. So this is what I think. By the way, before I move on to prompting, anything that we want to pick up, this is the last toolsy, tipsy thing, and then we're going to wind up. Which thing? What segmenting? The SAG-AFTRA. I didn't understand. Oh, Sigmoid. Sigmoid, yeah. Oh, right. Yeah, I think we'll probably not right away, but we've passed that point actually. Right? Just to give you a context, she had mentioned that you think this will go on forever. This innovation that's happening at rapid pace, will it go on forever? Does it stop? And just a small thing on that, what we are talking about is this. This is the curve of any improvement that usually happens in the world. I just want to mention it and let it be. It's called the Sigmoid growth curve, yes. Sorry? Yeah. It's a simple curve which simply looks like this, right? And she's asking on where are we on this curve? So when AI was struggling in its earlier years and generative AI was not even a dream yet, you were trying to simply predict which video you would want to see next, right? That's the basic use. We were earlier here, when we had ChatGPT, we entered this phase, this inflection point, and at this point, we are somewhere here. So this is a long journey before it starts to slow down. So you're going to see dramatic improvement in a short amount of time. That's going to happen, and then it's going to slow down and flatten out. So think of it as the tech industry, the software world. It's been through here, by the way. The software world, SaaS world, is somewhere here or at here. You can't have too many innovations at the same pace as before. You will have something new, but it will all slow down. For AI, we're somewhere here, right? For oil and gas, we're here, right? It's very unlikely that something will revolutionize oil and gas. I'm sure it is possible, but more or less we are here. So we were just talking about where this is, will this go on forever? And I think for filmmaking, for instance, right, this will hit sooner than the others. Weirdly. There's only so much saving and cost you will do, beyond which incremental improvements, like a new feature has been announced today. You can now not have a monkey face. You can also have a, squirrel face. That kind of stuff will happen, like emojis and stickers being launched by WhatsApp. So that eventually that's where every industry lands up. So cool. Anything on the sigmoid curve? Correct. Okay. So this on this prompting thing, I think the only thing I love for everyone to get is that prompting is not a skill. It's not a real skill. The real skill is thinking. Right? We always had a reason to build our skills for thinking, critical thinking, and being able to articulate well. These are always there. It just happens to be that the importance of that skill with AI happens to have gone up, right? And then there are cute hacks on top of it. Think before you answer. You get better. These are hacks. These are not skills, right? So I think this is how I like to think of prompting. If you were to think of instead of taking a prompting course, I think thinking courses are far more powerful. Right? And that's where this goes. Do you have clarity on what you want? Can you articulate it in ways that are clear and explicit and well defined? And then finally, do you have the patience and rigor to go through the iterations? Remember the physician example, right? I was actually demonstrating all of this. I had clarity of what is the process I wanted. I could articulate it into the format where, give me a panel of experts, simulate this, that, and then finally the iterations, and I'm pushing them further and further to kind of give me hypotheses and ask me more questions. So I reverse the roles, and instead of me asking ChatGPT, I say, can you ask me questions and get all the necessary information you want? How am I going to live with a checklist of random problem statements of mine, right? So you say, hey, I want to produce this Twitter thread on the, let's say today's session that happened. I want to write what my key lessons were, instance, right? And then you mention a little bit of context. But then instead of expecting a response, and this is a super awesome hack, this is actually a hack, very powerful. You say, I've given you the context, now you ask me questions so that you can be very effective at your job. And then it'll say, oh, okay, what were the topics covered? Okay, and how was the presenter? What one thing stood out about the presentation that you think everyone should know? It will start prompting you these nudges. And then you'll see it will have like a richer context floating out of you. Instead of you thinking of all I need to give it, you say, you only tell me what you need, man. I think that's a super powerful thing. And yeah, this is my prompt superhero. It has my logo on it. So this is my new saying, good prompters are great thinkers, for the reasons I have already elaborated. This is a simple thing again. If you're a beginner, ask it to be an expert. If you are an expert in your field, ask it to be your assistant. Right? Simple. And this is where you can take a photograph of the 3 levels of prompting, and then we're done with this. I mean, we can go on, but this will become a ChatGPT masterclass, so I would shy away from that at this point. Take a photograph. Most of these are pretty evident by themselves. And level 1, 2, 3 are on the basis of how serious you are about the quality of the outcome. That's it. If you're writing an email, you don't want to go to the level 3 most of the times, right? But if you're writing an SOP for the university application, you will go to level 3. And if you don't, you're basically like just not milking ChatGPT enough, right? And you're expecting it to kind of give you a high quality answer without you being patient and diligent enough. So that's the framework here. Here's an example. You might take another photograph, sorry. I put in this sample example here, and that's about it. This is an actual bot that I made and turned it into this one-liners here. I run a newsletter of about 125,000 people, and I am thankful that ChatGPT makes my life easier. You see a lot of these I've put in as italics and these angled brackets. You can actually put in these as templates for any of your prompts. So that's about it. We're at appendix, which is also the end. And that's about it. Thank you so much, guys. This is all I have for the evening. And if we have a little bit of energy left, I'm happy to talk about it. But otherwise, we can do another session sometime online. If we have questions, we can break now. Thank you. Yes.
I think it's very difficult to think through and then quantify what the job impact will be.
Of course.
I don't agree with the fact that the overall quantum will swing in the favor of employment. I still feel there will be more unemployment
That is possible.
by automation than not, right? How do you think that will be dealt with from a regulatory perspective, from a public sentiment perspective? Because all of those things could then swing AI one way or the other.
Yeah, I think regulations, public perception, politics, they are so complex and chaotic. I think there'll be a lot of drama. We can't avoid it. There's no chance that there won't be a lot of drama and chaos when there will be some industries like customer support. Right now, they're in the process of being wiped out, and it's going to happen pretty soon. So when the first big hit happens, I think there'll be a lot more public debate and conversation around it. And I'm worried the mistake that they'll make is that they'll assume that customer support can be automated so every other job can. I do not agree with that. I do believe that a lot of augmentation will happen, but usually whenever historically we've seen, whenever there is better technology, net employment has gone up. This is one of the exceptions where it may not hold true, yes. But we thought industrial age or everything will be automated and jobs will be gone because machines will take over. But if you look at it, the GDP per capita has gone up, even purchasing power parity, done. The median income has gone up. The unemployment rates are one of the lowest ever of mankind. I mean, assuming hunter-gatherers were employed, right? So this is a very odd, there's a name for this effect. I can't remember the effect, but the idea is this. Whenever means of production and means of distribution, this is a principles of economics, this is not AI or anything. Whenever means of production and means of distribution become more affordable, accessible, democratized, more people are able to produce goods and services for cheaper and improve lives for the overall society. That's been the thumb rule here. Now the real risk with AI is not that it will lead to long-term unemployment. I think the real risk with AI is it is so fast a pace of change that it will affect employment. There will be a vacuum of a time. I think this is a more nuanced view on it, where there will be a vacuum for maybe a few years. I don't know, who knows. All industries will progress at different paces, right? So there will be a vacuum of time where the balance of improvement in productivity and loss of employment, like the loss of employment that will happen in that process, will be quite rapid. By the time we compensate it up with newer use cases and newer businesses, it might be a gap which can cause genuine unrest. And these are possibilities. I'm not predicting it. I'm painting a possibility of, if we really want to be prepared with any of this, even in public discourse, when we try to solve a problem that we want to pick up, it matters that we see that as a problem, not long term, what will humans do. I think first, we've not seen that. Nobody's going to see that long term. But in the midterm, I hope it's not like, let's just ban it. Or, I don't know, maybe treat citizens as third class citizens in their own countries because their employment value has gone down. So those complex issues will arise, and I don't think there's an easy answer. One thing that we can all do is, instead of worrying about AI taking away jobs, what if we framed the problem statement as different, which is on one of my actual efforts. I'm from Rajasthan, and the state government, the Minister of IT, Youth, Employment and Sports, I think all of these are held by one guy. He's been very aggressive about, let's bring new AI and technology. He doesn't understand jack shit though. But he's like, let's bring more AI, and Rajasthan has a lot of solar power. So someone from his team reached out and then said, can you help us make the Rajasthan's AI policy? I'm not a policy guy, right? So I said, I can't help you make the policy, but I can give you the facts that are necessary to inform you. And one of the things that I'm recommending is, please, can you be one of the first ones to respond to AI with education? With better education, better upskilling, which is more forward-looking, instead of teaching them 700-year-old unemployable skills. I think that's the right way to respond to AI, because we have so many unsolved problems. Suddenly, so many people will shift their attention from tech to climate, because tech is going to be overpopulated now when AI takes up a lot of coding. That's what's going to happen. So we're going to see a massive innovation streak of tech people moving to other industries, innovating there because they have the innovation mindset, not the knowledge, right? And we'll see, actually, because of AI, non-AI industries improving. Very weird. It's so complex an equation. I would refrain from saying it's good or bad or anything like that. But we'll have a gap. There is no way we'll have perfect balance in this universe. It's always off balance. But I hope this is a more nuanced view than most people are usually talking about. It's a problem. It's going to be a problem for sure.
But don't you think for that AI boom to happen, first you need that computation power? So for that, first there will be GPUs boom, which is happening right now. NVIDIA, Qualcomm, everyone is going there. And if you see, all have target of 2-3 years yet to go. And with AI coming up, I think it will take quite some time.
It's a gold rush for GPUs right now. We don't know if they'll be able to, because the demand increase is so steep. Which industry can keep up with such an insane rise in demand? You can't do that with fashion, forget GPUs. You can't have such a short response time. At least fashion, everything is figured out. So at least all you need to do is gather the raw materials and the machine's multiplication. But here, new knowledge has to be created to have breakthroughs in chips so that you're not limited by these extremely rare minerals and metals. That's the real constraint at the end of the day. But nobody knows. I wish that they run out of GPUs so that we can slow down the pace of AI.
And you will expect military to go ahead with this spiral in cases photos staying good. Yeah. As but the of this little way, which is a little with the coach. So I want to know what kind of perspective is employed in the future in order to create mentally so promote into the society. To promote what? With the living or I don't think there is any troublesome. There are the people that I want to know the affected for position of creating AI work and generating AI. Look at so and as for myself and we are struggling we are so to choose what stuff yes so he should as an individual or let's say as an element of Japan, what should we do with which from his point of view are you asking? From your POV individually what's in it? Yeah, and as for in my view, as in so when celebrating like shoes so more, but you really love that we as Japanese or the respects we as American can people exchange way. Yes, absolutely. Now I understand. I think every big government in the world is trying to make their own area because it's going to take up a lot of resources away from your country. If you're going to pay for ChatGPT, then we're practically like sending our resources to them, right? So governments are like, this is going to be a multi-billion-dollar business. You better stay indoors. Now, the thing is, things are asymmetric. Talent flocks to talent, and I'm assuming that Japan is not at the forefront of AI at this moment. It's going to be hard because they simply don't have the necessary talent. For example, I come from India, and I would be very hesitant to promote the idea of building foundational models in India. Not because we don't have the resources, actually, we can eventually afford to spend for it. But I don't think we have a talent for it, which is necessary to build a models like this. So I think that it's true for Japan as well. I think what strengths Japan has had over these decades don't necessarily translate to many others. And that's my best understanding of this. And the thing is, since you have like every model is an API already, you can literally like visualize for and start using one. But you don't even practically in code for it. Using any model right now online, there is no incentive for a developer to try and use a local LLM or a certain promoted LLM by the government until unless it's ridiculously good and two, the government subsidizes it. Good. And if the government subsidizes it, I'm not sure how sustainable that might be at that scale. It's not a few $1,000s a day or I stick up more billions of dollars a week. Level of subsidization, and all some other profits. Maybe. But we can formally break and you can relax, see, we can do what I'm on, so, relax or think.
Okay, well, so, anything else to me first? Yeah, I think we can approach directly bigger. So let's get up the session. Just and
appreciate this, guys. Thank you for being so patient.
Tell you about the appreciation was
you've already given me very nice standard app.
certainly. So, we have to how keeping the importance on some of birds what I used to be. I suppose so. I like some rules for years and a half. It's I must think I got a little test. Nah, it's on the so it's just with this treasure. Really, fine shit. Nefes. Where you go to that? This one, I didn't. You photo. Photo. Ah, bro, photo. You know, I had some beer. Yeah, get it soon. I'm gonna be like. That's the thing. I didn't think you can come there. Oh yeah, we should take a photograph together, guys. Yeah. Set. What is here? It's this one. Sigma message. Oh, that's the one. Yeah, here's this stand here, and so yeah. Such a percent, yeah. Yeah, it's just a little bit taste. It's being a bunch of the very yeah, extra out, but well done. For instance, changes the things going next time, so for the even the 13 I disconnect you. So I to the it is like the pouching. I thought it was serious. You commended it. You got saw the reason. Was it revolutionary? Was it that side? Use of honors. Was it age? Again, why do you use foundation of things? John and short there. Yes. Visible. There was a cure for the bad. You think right, and you went to your back. This was shape. Yeah, just like your speech in it.
Actually, like a photograph in the front camera collective.
Yes, I'll take from I'll take from mobile as well. Yes, you have a great camera. With natural, let us take a video and like